France is now a popular tourist destination, especially for those who seek excitement. The French riots have entered their sixth night, which is truly astonishing. You know, some people enjoy skydiving, while others prefer scuba diving. The French are often seen as romantics, but it seems they also have a liking for chaos, albeit the kind that involves burning cars, looting shops, and even setting fire to town halls and police stations. This riot started because of a guy named Nahal Merzouk, who was shot and killed by the police. But you know what? Merzouk was shot simply because he was speeding in his car and tried to escape. I wonder if he knew that his fate would end up like this, he might have chosen to take a taxi or public transportation. Oh wait, the buses were set on fire too. The scale of this riot is not small at all, with 45,000 police officers and gendarmes deployed. It seems the French government is determined to quell the situation. Even President Macron has come out to convene ministers to discuss this matter. Interestingly, the enthusiasm of this riot has spread to neighboring Switzerland, where 7 people have been arrested. I guess this is what they call European integration, even riots come together. The leaders of these countries are probably thinking, what's going on? Did we miss some important information at the EU summit? Is France trying to spread a new spirit of liberty, equality, and fraternity to the world? It's just that this time, the fraternity turned into smashing and burning, right? What's even more amusing is that the Australian government, upon seeing this situation, didn't say much but simply raised the travel warning level for France. They are basically telling their citizens, if you want to go to France, be prepared to potentially become a new target of the riots. However, I must say, for those who are traveling in France, it will definitely be a memorable experience. In Marseille, for example, a bus carrying a Chinese tour group had its windows smashed, and some Chinese citizens on board were lightly injured. The Chinese Consulate General in Marseille has already lodged a protest with France. Just imagine sitting on a tourist bus, enjoying the scenery, and suddenly stones start flying, windows shatter. Then you think, oh, so this is the unique tourism experience in France. I guess those Chinese tourists will have plenty to talk about at their gatherings afterwards. Overall, if you're planning to travel to France, you might want to consider this new travel tip. Don't forget to bring your riot gear and a handy fire extinguisher. Hopefully, France can restore order soon so that people can enjoy their baguettes and red wine in peace. U.S. Treasury Secretary Yellen is scheduled to visit Beijing on July 6, which is like a heavyweight boxing match but on the political stage. Do you know Janet Yellen? This powerful woman is like the economic superhero of the United States. She not only has to navigate the complex U.S. economic environment but also engage in a fierce economic debate with China's Vice Premier, He Lifeng. Yes, you heard it right, it's that He Lifeng, the person who controls a $60 trillion financial industry. His responsibilities are so numerous that he may even struggle to keep track himself. He oversees China's banks, financial regulations, real estate industry, and can you believe it? He is also in charge of China's brand new anti-spying law. It's like having one person simultaneously participating in a marathon, sprinting, swimming, and weightlifting competitions, truly a superhuman presence. But back to Yellen, her visit to Beijing is not about seeking a decoupling from China. On the contrary, she wants to make it clear to China that the United States will not be intimidated by China's economic coercion. She is like that postal worker who pushes forward through heavy snow, no matter how harsh the conditions, determined to deliver the mail. Her message is that the United States will stand together with its allies to address China's economic coercion. Moreover, she wants to express concerns about China's new anti-spying law. Yellen is like that brave student who dares to question a professor, even when faced with complex legal provisions and firm stances. She won't easily back down. It's like playing a complex game of chess, where Yellen tries to anticipate her opponent's next move as much as possible. This is our Yellen. She not only confronts complex economic issues but also tackles tricky political problems. It's like navigating through turbulent waters while trying to find that one stone that will help her cross the river smoothly. This is not just an economic debate, but also a political competition, and the outcome will affect the world. So, let's look forward to this debate and see who can win this globally watched contest. Recently, the movie Barbie was banned in Vietnam. Do you know why? It's because the movie included a controversial depiction of the Nine Dash Line, which represents China's claimed territorial waters in the South China Sea. Vietnam and China have been in ongoing disputes over this issue. It turns out that Vietnam prefers discussing geography rather than having Barbie dolls dressed in pink and living in dream houses. Interestingly, Vietnam and China seem to be playing a new game together, which I call, who can ban Hollywood movies first? Yes, the Pentagon announced that it will no longer assist Hollywood movies that undergo Beijing's censorship, marking a double blow to Hollywood films. Vietnam and China, they are truly good brothers, not only sharing a border but also employing similar tactics to ban movies. They must be competing for the title of Best Global Movie Censorship Country. This reminds me of the past when Hollywood movies went to great lengths to be released in China. They did all sorts of awkward things. For example, Red Dawn had to spend a lot of money to modify its content to make China no longer the antagonist, and the Tibetan character in Doctor Strange was changed to Celtic to avoid upsetting Chinese officials. Now, Hollywood movies must be thinking, sorry, we no longer do those things. We have found new awkward things to do, like being banned by both Vietnam and China simultaneously. However, that's not the funniest part. The funniest part is that both China and Vietnam might have forgotten a crucial fact: Hollywood movies don't necessarily need them. Yes, according to statistics, China's share of annual box office revenue for Hollywood movies has dropped from 30.7% in 2018 to 13.6% this year over the past 4 years. It seems like Hollywood's response to China and Vietnam would be, "That's okay, we don't need you, we have other audiences." So, in the end, let's wish these Hollywood movies well. They may no longer appear in cinemas in China and Vietnam, but they will find their own audience because movies are art, and art always finds people who appreciate it. At the same time, let's also look forward to China and Vietnam's next ban action. I believe it will make us laugh even more. In addition to the incident of Chinese tourist buses being attacked, there was also a violent event near Paris in La Réunion. Demonstrators rammed a car into the mayor's house and set it on fire. The mayor's wife and a child were injured. French President Emmanuel Macron cancelled his state visit to Germany on Saturday due to the riots. German foreign policy experts say the riots threaten France's national stability. The U.S. State Department issued the latest travel advisory for China. On June 30th, the U.S. State Department issued the latest travel advisory for mainland China, Hong Kong, and Macau. The advisory states that due to arbitrary enforcement of local laws, the risk of wrongful detention, and limited ability to provide emergency consular services, U.S. citizens should reconsider travel to mainland China and Macau. Extra caution is advised when traveling to Hong Kong, and specific risks and conditions should be assessed when traveling to different jurisdictions within China. According to the U.S. media website Politico, Republican Senator J.D. Vance from Ohio stated in an interview with NBC on Sunday that if China doesn't stop sending precursor chemicals used to produce the drug fentanyl to Mexico and the United States, the U.S. should impose severe economic sanctions on China. Democratic Senator Brown also mentioned that if these sanctions are implemented correctly, it would cause significant economic losses to China, and the U.S. must pursue all channels that provide funding and money laundering for this. CIA Director William Burns, in a speech in the UK on the 1st, stated that while Russian aggression poses a serious challenge, China is the only country with the intention and growing capabilities to reshape the international order. Decoupling from China is a foolish approach. He argued that the U.S. should neither decouple from nor depend on China. Burns also pointed out that the mutiny led by Wagner Group leader Prigozhin demonstrates the harm Putin has caused to Russia. Former Chinese ambassador to the United States, Cui Tiankai, spoke at a forum on Monday, July 3, addressing the notion of setting up barriers for U.S.-China relations, emphasizing that if the relationship is already on the wrong track, what use are these barriers? He stated that it is necessary to ensure that the relationship is on the right path for the barriers to be effective, and this requires both sides to have sufficient political will. John Culver, a former China intelligence analyst in the United States, said that any political change in Russia now would immediately prompt a reassessment of the China-Russia relationship. In more extreme cases, a deterioration in Beijing's relationship with Moscow could force China to redeploy its military along the border, which would harm China's interests in other regions. As the G7 focuses on the issue of economic coercion by China, American journalist Bethany Allen Ebrahimian stated that Beijing has weaponized its economy in recent years, forcing democratic countries and multinational corporations to submit to its authoritarian values. In her new book, Beijing's Power Play, she describes China's coercive tactics using authoritarian economic governance and calls for democratic countries to unite and return to a path of democratic values and economic ties to counter China's autocratic coercion. German executive Jörg Wuttke has lived in China for about 30 years and was directly involved in the establishment of the German Chamber of Commerce and the European Union Chamber of Commerce in China. Recently, he stepped down as the president of the EU Chamber of Commerce. In an interview with Deutsche Welle, Wuttke stated that China is no longer the open country it was in the era of Deng Xiaoping. Chinese Defense Minister Li Shangfu met with the Russian Navy commander seeking to strengthen military ties and counterbalance against the US and the West. The Chinese Navy escort fleet, led by the Nanning ship, made a rare visit to the Atlantic coast of Africa and arrived in Nigeria on Sunday, July 2, for a visit. The hospital ship will also visit Pacific Island nations, aiming to expand China's overseas influence. According to military observers, the J-20 has finally overcome its heart disease and become a true new weapon that can compete with the US F-22 and F-35 stealth fighters. The Unmanned Aerial Vehicle (UAV) swarm system achieved a milestone in drone control technology, demonstrating China's strategic capability in the field of unmanned aerial vehicles. The appearance of these two new weapons may reflect a leap forward in China's Air Force capabilities. China's counter-espionage law takes effect. China's counter-espionage law officially took effect on July 1, expanding the definition of espionage activities and the law enforcement powers of national security units. It also requires postal, telecommunications, and internet service providers to cooperate with the government in combating espionage activities. According to media reports, many foreign companies in China are nervous and concerned about this latest revision of the counter-espionage law, because it may bring more legal risks to foreign enterprises and individuals. A survey shows that Russia continues to import military drones from China. Nikkei Asia published a survey report stating that from December 2022 to April of this year, Russian companies imported at least 37 Chinese-made drones from China, with customs records indicating their specific military operational use. According to reports, the Chinese government denies providing military assistance to Russia, and the support may now be channeled through corporate exchanges. It is currently unclear whether the Chinese government or companies were aware of the customs records filled out by Russia. The Chinese military made a rare group visit to the United Kingdom and France, referring to it as strategic consultations. As the normalization of Sino-Japanese relations reaches half a century, China and Japan have been deepening their economic ties. The number of Japanese companies in China exceeded 30,000 in 2020, and the total trade between the two countries has increased by about 100 times. Currently, the economic power struggle between China and the United States is having an impact. The curtain falls on Japan's ODA to China. Japan's official development assistance, ODA, to China began in December 1979 when then Prime Minister Masayoshi Ihara visited China. It provided a cumulative loan of 3.3165 trillion yen and implemented 231 projects, including the construction of basic living infrastructure. ODA will come to a complete end in March, but there are still 2 Japanese people working hard in China. A Japanese man who has been planting trees in China for 30 years. The environment knows no borders. Takao Takami of the Green Earth Network shows photos of Datong City greening over the past 30 years. Initially mocked for coming from Japan to support tree planting, they persisted in the belief that the environment knows no borders. Masao Ishihara, 92 years old, has participated in 16 tree planting events, and during the day, he is a friendly old man, but at night, he gets drunk and talks about his family being killed during the war. The stock price of the American technology brand Apple has performed well recently, with the company's shares surpassing $190 on Friday, June 30, making it the first company in the world to have a market value exceeding $3 trillion. If this number is compared to the GDP of countries around the world, it is approximately equivalent to the GDP of the United Kingdom in 2022, which is $3.07 trillion, ranking behind only the United States, China, Japan, Germany, and India. On the 1st, Hong Kong people in several cities in the UK held demonstrations. Hong Kong residents organized a protest march in Sheffield against the Hong Kong national security law. Some individuals claiming to be Chinese students pulled the flags from the hands of the protesters, and the police intervened to separate the two sides. A video from the organizing group Re-Water showed a Chinese man expressing dissatisfaction with the protesters claiming that Hong Kong is not part of China. 2 Mandarin-speaking men also provoked the Hong Kong demonstrators. The tragedies that have occurred in China continue to unfold without any change. Ms. Wang Yuha, the sister of Dr. Wang Bingjung, one of the initiators of the Chinese overseas democracy movement, made an appeal to the protesters present at the July 1 demonstration in front of the Chinese consulate in Los Angeles in support of Hong Kong. She stated that China belongs to the Chinese people and does not belong to any political party, especially not the Chinese Communist Party. Under the Chinese oppression faced by Hong Kong, the Chinese Human Rights Lawyers Award has been renamed as the 709 Human Rights Lawyers Award to show support. On the 2nd, Zhou Fengxue, the director of the Chinese Human Rights Defenders, announced that the recipients of this award include Chinese human rights lawyers Yu Wensheng and Zhou Shifeng, as well as former vice chair of the Hong Kong Alliance in support of patriotic democratic movements of China and barrister Albert Ho Chun-yan. Zhou stated that the Chinese communist regime's crackdown on human rights lawyers continues to expand, and their work demonstrates immense courage, serving as a testament to the indomitable human spirit. On Monday, the Hong Kong National Security Office announced the wanted list of 8 Hong Kong residents overseas, including Ren Jianfeng, Yuan Gongyi, Guo Fenji, Guo Rongkeng, Xu Zifeng, Meng Jiaoda, Lu Zudi, and Nathan Law, with a reward of 1 million Hong Kong dollars each for individuals who have violated the national security law outside the territory. They are accused of subverting state power and colluding with foreign forces to endanger national security under the Hong Kong National Security Law. Chinese renowned economist and co-founder of the China Macroeconomy Forum, Liu Yuanchen, warned that China's youth unemployment problem may persist for 10 years and worsen in the short term. If mishandled, it could trigger social issues beyond the economic realm and even become a catalyst for political problems. Professor Jin Qiu from the London School of Economics wrote that the unemployment rate among China's 16 to 24-year-olds highlights a more dramatic and urgent issue. China has failed to fully employ its youngest and most educated generation. Pan Gongsheng, who has a background in studying and working in the UK and the US, has become the new secretary of the Party Committee of the People's Bank of China. This move by Chinese authorities is seen as a step to revive the sluggish economy. Experts also point out that Pan Gongsheng's international experience will help lead the central bank through challenging times. A vegetable vendor in Henan province was fined 110,000 yuan for selling substandard vegetables, but the court ruled against approving the penalty. A vegetable vendor in Luoyang, Henan, was fined 110,000 yuan, RMB, for selling substandard vegetables. The administrative agency applied for compulsory enforcement to the court, but the court ruled against approving it. Observers believe that although the Chinese State Council has strengthened supervision, it has not been able to effectively curb the practice of local governments using fines for revenue generation. According to China's official media Xinhua News Agency, at the end of June, the first research institution outside of China dedicated to Xi Jinping thought was established in Russia. The Russian name of the institution is Office for the Study of Contemporary Chinese Ideology and Xi Jinping Thought, established by a well-known Russian think tank, the Russian Academy of Sciences Institute of China and Asia-Pacific Studies. Its aim is to systematically study Xi Jinping's socialism with Chinese characteristics for the new era. The Chinese yuan, which once claimed to replace the US dollar, has plummeted. At the beginning of the year, China confidently stated its intention to replace the US dollar with the yuan. However, at the end of June, the exchange rate between the US dollar and the yuan exceeded 7.25, prompting the Chinese government to intervene urgently in the market. State-owned banks in Hong Kong began selling US dollars in the offshore yuan market to support the value of the yuan. Meanwhile, Russia has been massively selling off yuan. Hello everyone, I am your news anchor Yali, providing you with a one-stop service for China-related news every day. Feel free to leave comments in the comment section, and we will carefully read and respond to your comments. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. See you next time, take care everyone.